Listen, let me tell you something real. Every woman has value. You were born with it. Nobody can take it away from you, but sometimes we hand it over without even realizing it. And when that happens, you lose power in front of a man. Not because you don't deserve respect, but because you allowed certain habits to chip away at your worth. So today, I want to give you 4 things that kill your value in front of a man. If you avoid these, you'll stand tall, strong, and respected. Validation feels good. There's no denying that. When someone tells you that you look beautiful, that you're doing a great job, or that they love you, it warms your heart. But the problem comes when your sense of worth depends on hearing those words over and over again. When you need constant reassurance from another person, especially from a man, you start to hand over control of your value to them. And once you do that, you're no longer living out of your own confidence. You're living out of someone else's approval. Depending on validation is like building a house on shifting sand. One day, he might be affectionate and full of praise, and you feel on top of the world. The next day, he might be distracted, stressed, or simply quiet, and suddenly your whole mood crashes. You begin to doubt yourself, asking, am I not enough? Did I do something wrong? Does he still love me? Your emotions rise and fall with his words, and that kind of instability keeps you stuck in insecurity. That's not love, it's dependency. When you depend on validation, you start seeking it in ways that can make you compromise yourself. You may change how you dress, not because you like it, but because you think it will get his attention. You may silence your opinions in conversations because you're afraid he won't agree and withdraw his affection. You might even overextend yourself, doing more than you should, just to keep him pleased. And every time you do this, you're chipping away at your own sense of identity. You're saying, who I really am isn't enough. I need your stamp of approval to matter. That's a dangerous place to live. The truth is, a man respects a woman who already knows her worth before he says a word. Confidence is magnetic. When you walk into a room with assurance in who you are, you don't have to beg anyone to notice you. You don't have to fish for compliments. You radiate value without trying. And when you carry that kind of self-respect, the right kind of man will not only notice it, but cherish it. He knows he can't play games with someone who doesn't need him to define. Think about this. If you always depend on someone else to validate you, what happens when they leave? What happens if he gets busy, distracted, or walks away from the relationship? Suddenly, your identity collapses with him. That's why it's so important to anchor your worth in something unshakable. Your own self-belief, your values, your faith, your vision for life. When you stand on that foundation, no one can take it from you. Depending on validation also puts pressure on the relationship itself. A man can start to feel like he's carrying the responsibility of your happiness. And let's be honest, no one wants that weight on their shoulders all the time. Healthy love is about giving and sharing, not one person constantly needing to be reassured that they're good enough. When you take charge of your own confidence, you actually make the relationship lighter and healthier. You bring joy, balance, and strength instead of neediness and insecurity. This doesn't mean you should never enjoy compliments or appreciation. Of course, it feels good when someone affirms you, and that's natural. The difference is whether you need it to feel valuable. Receiving validation should feel like a bonus, not a lifeline. If you already know you're intelligent, beautiful, worthy, and strong, then when someone else says it, it's just confirmation, not your only source of belief. Building that kind of inner confidence takes intentional work. It means speaking positively to yourself instead of waiting for others to do it. It means reminding yourself of what you've overcome, the goals you've achieved, and the unique qualities you bring to the table. It means refusing to compare yourself to other women because your journey is your own. It also means holding firm to your standards, because a woman who values herself doesn't lower the bar just to keep someone around. Over time, when you learn to live without needing external validation, something powerful happens. you start to attract people who truly appreciate you, not because you're begging for attention, but because you're walking in your authentic self. You become harder to manipulate because no one can threaten to withdraw their affection and leave you broken. You become more selective because you're not desperate for someone to make you feel whole. You already are whole. The freedom in this is life-changing. You no longer spend your nights overthinking silence, replaying conversations, or questioning if you're lovable. You no longer perform for approval or shapeshift into someone else's idea of what you should be. You walk in peace because you know your worth isn't up for debate. And when you carry yourself like that, not only does a man respect you more, but you also respect yourself more deeply than ever before. At the end of the day, validation from others is temporary. It comes and goes like the wind, but validation from within is permanent. It stays with you no matter who walks in or out of your life. And when you live from that place of strength, you don't just increase your value in front of a man, you increase your value in front of yourself. And that, more than anything, is what makes you truly powerful. Disrespect is one of the clearest warning signs in any relationship. Yet, too many people brush it aside, hoping it will get better. They tell themselves, maybe he didn't mean it that way, or if I stay patient, he'll change. But the truth is, the moment you start tolerating disrespect, you teach the other person exactly how far they can go with you. What you allow is what will continue. Respect is not optional. It is the foundation of love, trust, and partnership. Without it, a relationship is nothing but imbalance. And the one who tolerates disrespect always ends up losing themselves piece by piece. Tolerating disrespect can show up in many ways. It might be in the words spoken to you when you're constantly put down, criticized, or dismissed. It might be in actions when promises are broken, your boundaries are ignored, or your needs are treated as less important. It could also appear in subtle forms like being excluded, ignored, or made to feel invisible. No matter how it shows up, it chips away at your dignity. And every time you excuse it, it grows stronger. The danger of allowing disrespect is that it doesn't usually stay small. What starts as a minor insult can grow into constant belittling. What begins as ignoring one boundary can turn into disregarding all of them. Disrespect is like a weed. If you don't pull it out early, it spreads and takes over everything. By tolerating it, you send a silent message that you are willing to be treated as less than you deserve. And once that standard is set, it's very hard to change it. When you accept disrespect, you also begin to question your own value. You start to wonder, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I don't deserve better. Maybe this is just how relationships are. That's how people get trapped. They convince themselves that disrespect is normal, and before long, they've lowered the bar so much that they don't even recognize themselves anymore. This is why it's so important to draw the line early. You cannot control how someone else acts, but you can control what you allow into your life. Respect is tied directly to self-worth. If you respect yourself, you will not tolerate someone else treating you as if you don't matter. It doesn't matter how much you love him, how long you've been together, how badly you want things to work. If he can't give you respect, he doesn't deserve access to your heart. Love without respect is not love. It's manipulation, dependency, or control. A man who truly values you will never make you beg for the most basic thing, dignity. Setting boundaries is one of the most powerful ways to demand respect. A boundary is simply a clear standard for how you will and will not be treated. It's not about controlling someone else. It's about protecting yourself. For example, if he raises his voice at you, you can calmly say, I don't allow yelling in this relationship. If it happens again, I'll have to step away. Then, if he crosses that line, you follow through. Boundaries mean nothing without consequences. The strength of your boundary teaches others how serious you are about respecting yourself. Some people fear that enforcing boundaries will push a man away. But the truth is, The wrong man will walk away when you demand respect, and the right man will rise to meet the standard. If someone leaves because you refuse to accept disrespect, you didn't lose anything. You saved yourself from years of pain. It's better to stand alone in dignity than to stay with someone who chips away at your soul. You must also remember that disrespect doesn't only come in extreme forms. Sometimes it hides in small, repeated actions, sarcastic jokes at your expense, rolling eyes when you speak, ignoring your feelings when you express them. Many women overlook these because they don't seem serious, but little things add up, and they reveal someone's true attitude toward you. Pay attention to patterns, not excuses. If someone disrespects you in small ways consistently, it's only a matter of time before it escalates. Never tolerating disrespect also means respecting yourself enough to walk away when necessary. Walking away isn't weakness, it's strength. It's choosing peace over chaos, self-worth over mistreatment, and dignity over desperation. Too many people stay because they think leaving means failure. But the real failure is betraying yourself just to keep someone who refuses to honor you. The beauty of demanding respect is that it transforms not only how others see you, but how you see yourself. When you no longer allow disrespect in your life, you stand taller, speak clearer, and live freer. You send a message to the world: I know my worth, and I won't settle for less. And that kind of confidence attracts the right people while repelling the wrong ones. At the end of the day, disrespect kills love, drains energy, and destroys trust. The longer you allow it, the harder it becomes to rebuild what's broken. But the moment you decide that you deserve better and act on it, you reclaim your power. Respect is not something you negotiate. It is something you require. Never forget, a man who truly values you will never make you question whether or not you're worthy of respect. He will show it in his words, his actions, and his consistency. So do not tolerate disrespect, not once, not in small doses, not as a habit you hope will change. The way you allow others to treat you reflects the way you value yourself. And when you stand firm on respect, you will never lose your worth in front of anyone. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is losing themselves. At first, it feels natural. You want to spend all your time with the other person. You want to do what makes them happy, and you want to build a strong bond. But over time, some women begin to give up little pieces of themselves in the name of love. They stop pursuing their passions. They let go of their goals. They spend less time with friends and family, and they reshape their lives around the man they're with. And while it may feel like sacrifice, what it really does is strip away the individuality that made them valuable in the first place. The truth is, individuality is power. It's the fire that makes you unique. It's the personality, dreams, and talents that set you apart from everyone else. That's what a man first noticed in you, the spark of who you are. But when you give that up to blend completely into his world, you lose the very thing that made you stand out. A woman without individuality becomes a shadow, and no man falls in love with a shadow. Keeping your individuality doesn't mean being selfish or refusing to compromise. It means remembering that you were a whole person before the relationship, and you must remain a whole person within it. Too often, women believe that being a good partner means putting themselves second at all times. But a healthy relationship is not about erasing yourself. It's about bringing two strong, complete individuals together who complement each other without losing their identity. When you abandon your individuality, resentment often grows. At first, you may think you're happy to let go of certain things for the sake of the relationship. But deep down, a part of you feels unfulfilled. Maybe you love painting, but you gave it up because he wasn't interested. Maybe you had career dreams, but you put them aside to fit his schedule. Maybe you had friendships, but you let them fade because he wanted all your time. One day you look around and realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. And worse, you start to feel that your partner doesn't value you the way you hoped. That's because even he sees that the light that once attracted him is fading. Individuality also creates balance in a relationship. If everything revolves around him, the relationship tilts off center. You lose power, and he gains too much of it. But when you hold on to your own identity, your passions, your voice, your goals, you bring balance. You're not dependent on him for your sense of purpose because you already have it. And that makes the connection healthier because you're choosing each other from a place of strength, not from fear of being incomplete alone. Another danger of losing individuality is that it creates desperation. When your entire life revolves around one man, the thought of losing him feels unbearable because with him goes your entire world. That's when women start tolerating behavior they should never accept. They think, if I lose him, I lose everything. But if you keep your individuality, you'll never be trapped like that. You'll always know that you are enough on your own. You'll love deeply, but you'll never cling desperately. Keeping individuality means you continue to grow as a person while in a relationship. You keep setting goals for yourself. You keep learning. You keep building friendships. You keep nurturing your talents. You don't stop becoming better just because you're in love. In fact, the best relationships inspire you to grow even more because your partner encourages you to shine and you do the same for him. That's how love is supposed to work. Two people lifting each other up, not one person losing themselves to hold the other up. Think about it this way. Individuality is what makes you interesting. Imagine sitting across from someone who has no opinions, no dreams, no hobbies of their own. Everything they do is based on what someone else wants. After a while, there's nothing exciting to discover about them. But a woman who holds on to her individuality keeps a sense of mystery, growth, and depth. She's always evolving, always becoming, always bringing something fresh to the relationship. That is magnetic. This doesn't mean you don't compromise or adjust. Of course, every relationship requires flexibility, but compromise should never come at the cost of erasing yourself. Compromise means meeting halfway, not moving all the way to his side and abandoning yours. A relationship should add to your life, not replace it. Sometimes fear makes women give up their individuality. They think, if I keep being myself, he might not like it. If I chase my dreams, he might feel left behind. If I speak my mind, he might walk away. But here's the truth. If he leaves because you stayed true to yourself, then he was never the right one for you. The right man doesn't want you to shrink. He wants you to shine. The wrong one only feels comfortable if you're small enough to control. So keep your individuality. Hold on to your passions. Nurture your friendships. Pursue your goals and protect your identity. Love him, yes, but never forget to love yourself too. Remember that your value is not in how much of yourself you erase for someone else. It's in how fully you live as the person you were created to be. At the end of the day, the strongest relationships are not built on dependency, but on individuality. Two complete people choosing to walk side by side create a bond that's unbreakable. Because when you keep your individuality, you don't just keep your value in front of a man, you keep your value in front of yourself. And that is the kind of love that lasts. Desperation is one of the quickest ways to lose your value in front of anyone, especially in a relationship. When you move from a place of desperation, you're no longer acting out of confidence. You're acting out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being loved, fear of not being chosen. And when fear drives your actions, it shows in every word, every gesture, and every decision you make. It creates an energy that pushes people away rather than drawing them closer. Desperation often starts quietly. Maybe you like someone so much that you begin to overextend yourself just to keep their attention. You text first every time, even when they hardly respond. You rearrange your life, your schedule, even your priorities, just to make yourself more available. You say yes to things you don't agree with because you're afraid that saying no might scare him off. Slowly, without realizing it, you're teaching him that you'll do anything just to keep him around. That's not love. That's fear disguised as devotion. The problem with desperation is that it communicates lack of value. It says, I don't believe I'm enough as I am, so I need to work overtime to prove my worth. But here's the truth. People respect confidence, not desperation. When a man senses that you are terrified of losing him, he knows you've given him all the power. He doesn't have to earn your love, your time, or your loyalty. You've already handed it over without requiring anything in return. That imbalance destroys the respect that every healthy relationship needs to survive. When you act out of desperation, you also lower your standards. Things you once said you'd never tolerate suddenly become acceptable. Maybe he cancels plans last minute, but you let it slide. Maybe he disrespects you with his words, but you excuse it because you don't want to start an argument. Maybe he avoids commitment, but you convince yourself that someday he'll change. Deep down, you know you deserve better, but desperation blinds you into thinking that holding on is better than letting go. In reality, holding on to the wrong person is what keeps you from the right one. Desperation also creates pressure in the relationship. When you cling too tightly, it doesn't make someone want to stay. It makes them want to run. Imagine someone holding on to you so hard that you can't breathe. That's how desperation feels. It suffocates love instead of allowing it to grow. Real love requires space, freedom, and choice. When you're secure in yourself, you can love without clinging. But when you're desperate, you confuse possession with connection, and that drives people further away. The key to avoiding desperation is learning to be complete on your own. That doesn't mean you don't want love or that you don't value companionship. It means you know you're already whole whether someone is in your life or not. When you build a life you love, filled with your passions, friendships, goals, and self-respect, you're not depending on someone else to give you meaning. You're inviting someone to share in a life that's already rich and fulfilling. That's the difference between being desperate for love and being ready for it. Think about it. The most attractive people are the ones who carry themselves with confidence. They're not begging to be noticed. They're already shining in their own lane. They don't chase approval because they know their value. That confidence creates a pull that's magnetic. A woman who loves herself, respects herself, and doesn't settle out of fear is irresistible. She doesn't have to act desperate because she knows that love should be earned, not begged for. Avoiding desperation also means being willing to walk away when necessary. If someone doesn't treat you with respect, if they refuse to commit, or if they play games with your emotions, you must have the courage to let them go. Desperation says, I'll take whatever I can get. Confidence says, I'd rather wait for the right person than waste my time with the wrong one. The more you stand firm in your worth, the less tempted you'll be to settle just because you're afraid of being alone. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. In fact, some of the most powerful growth happens in seasons of being single. That's when you discover who you are, what you value, and what you truly want in a partner. Desperation makes you rush into relationships out of fear. Strength makes you wait until you find someone who matches your standards. When you embrace that mindset, you protect yourself from heartbreak. That comes from clinging to people who were never meant to stay. At the heart of it, desperation kills love because it erases equality. It puts one person on a pedestal and the other person in a position of begging. But real love isn't about begging. It's about balance. It's about two people choosing each other freely, not out of fear, but out of respect and genuine connection. That kind of love can't grow where desperation lives, so avoid desperation at all costs. Don't chase, don't beg, don't shrink yourself to be chosen. Build yourself, love yourself, and walk in confidence. Remember that your value is not up for negotiation. The right person will see it without you having to prove it. And when you stand strong in that truth, you won't just gain respect from a man, you'll gain respect from yourself. And that kind of respect is the foundation of a love that lasts. Self-worth is one of the most powerful foundations you can ever build for your life. It is the deep understanding that you are valuable, capable, and deserving of love and respect, not because someone else says so, but because it is already true within you. Too often people look outside themselves for proof of their value. They think their worth comes from how many people approve of them, how attractive others find them, how much money they earn, or whether someone chooses to stay in their life. But the reality is this: when your worth depends on things outside of you, it will always be fragile. True self-worth must come from within, because that is the only place where it cannot be taken away. Depending on external validation for self-worth is like building your house on sand. Compliments, achievements, or relationships might make you feel good for a while, but they can shift at any moment. What happens when the compliments stop? What happens when you fail at something, or when someone you love walks away? If all of your value is tied to those things, then your sense of self collapses with them. That's why you must anchor your worth in yourself, not in circumstances or people. Self-worth from within means you decide who you are and what you deserve before the world tries to tell you. It means you wake up in the morning already knowing that you are enough, whether or not anyone acknowledges it. It's a quiet strength, not a performance. It doesn't shout, "Look at me, I'm worthy." It simply lives with confidence, dignity, and peace. When you truly carry self-worth, you no longer beg for attention or chase approval, because you understand that your value is constant. The power of self-worth is that it makes you unshakable. Life will test you. People will disappoint you. Opportunities will come and go. But if your worth is rooted in who you are, not in what you have or who you're with, then nothing can destroy your foundation. You may experience pain, but you will not crumble. You may feel rejection, but you will not be defined by it. You may walk through seasons of loneliness, but you will never confuse being alone with being unworthy. That is the kind of strength that only comes when you find your value within. Building this inner worth starts with how you speak to yourself. Too many people talk to themselves in ways they would never talk to a friend. They replay their mistakes, they criticize their appearance, they focus on their weaknesses, and they convince themselves that they are not enough. But self-worth grows when you begin to affirm yourself. When you say, "I am capable, I am deserving, I am enough as I am," those words start to reshape your mindset. Affirmations aren't magic, but they are seeds, and when you plant them daily, they grow into confidence that cannot be shaken by external voices. Self-worth also comes from honoring your own boundaries. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, every time you allow someone to disrespect you without consequence, you send a message to yourself that your needs don't matter. But when you stand firm, when you refuse to accept treatment beneath your dignity, you reinforce your value. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about protecting your self-respect. And every time you keep them, you remind yourself that you are worthy of respect. Another key to building inner worth is recognizing your progress. Too often people measure their value only by big achievements or recognition. But true self-worth grows when you acknowledge the small victories, the times you push through, fear, the lessons you learned from failure, the growth you've made over the years. When you celebrate yourself, not just for what you've achieved, but for who you become, you cultivate a sense of worth that isn't tied to external applause. It's also important to separate self-worth from perfection. Many people believe, "I'll be worthy when I lose the weight, when I get the job, when I find the right partner, when I fix all my flaws." But self-worth is not conditional. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about embracing your worth right now, even while you're still growing. You don't have to earn the right to see yourself as valuable. You already are. When you accept that truth, your growth becomes healthier because you're improving out of love for yourself, not out of shame. When your self-worth comes from within, it transforms how you show up in relationships. You no longer cling to people out of fear of being abandoned. You no longer settle for half-hearted love. You no longer shrink yourself to be accepted. Instead, you enter relationships as a whole person, not as someone waiting to be completed. That changes everything because now love becomes a choice, not a crutch. You choose someone not because you need them to validate you, but because you value yourself enough to share your life only with someone who honors that worth. At the deepest level, self-worth is freedom. It's freedom from the opinions of others, freedom from the weight of comparison, freedom from the need to constantly prove yourself. It allows you to walk into any room, any relationship, or any challenge with the quiet assurance that you are enough. And when you live from that place, you don't just gain respect from others. You gain peace within yourself. So remind yourself daily, your worth doesn't come from what people say, what you achieve, or who stands beside you. It comes from the fact that you are already valuable right now without condition. When you build your life on that truth, you will never have to beg for love, approval, or respect. You will walk in it naturally because you know your self-worth comes from within, and that is something no one can ever take away. Respect is something every person desires, but many forget where it truly begins. Respect from others doesn't appear out of thin air. It's drawn to you by how you treat yourself. People watch the way you carry yourself, the standards you set, the boundaries you hold, and the confidence you project. If you don't respect yourself, it becomes very difficult to demand it from anyone else. But when you walk in self-respect, you naturally teach others how to value you. Respect follows self-respect because the world mirrors the way you present yourself. Self-respect is about knowing your worth and refusing to compromise it. It means you don't settle for less than you deserve just because you're afraid of being alone. It means you don't tolerate disrespect, broken promises, or dishonesty, no matter how much you love someone. It also means you treat yourself well. You take care of your mind, your body, and your spirit because you believe you are worthy of care. When you live with that level of dignity, people notice. They can see when you value yourself, and that sets the standard for how they approach you. Think about it. If you constantly put yourself down, if you accept mistreatment, if you lower your standards out of desperation, why would anyone else treat you differently? You're showing them that you don't believe you deserve more. People often rise or fall to the level you set. If you carry yourself like someone who doesn't matter, unfortunately, others will start to believe that too. But when you move with confidence, when you set boundaries, when you speak with authority about your worth, others have no choice but to either respect you or remove themselves from your life. Respect. Following self-respect also applies to relationships. A woman who respects herself doesn't allow a man to play games with her time or emotions. She makes it clear that love without respect is unacceptable. She's not afraid to walk away if her standards aren't met, and that firmness makes her more attractive, not less. Men respect women who respect themselves because they know they can't manipulate them. They can't take advantage of them, and they can't feed them half-hearted love. Instead, they have to step up, give their best, and meet her at the level she sets. This truth extends beyond romantic relationships. In friendships, in work environments, in family dynamics, people treat you based on the cues you give them. If you consistently give, and give without honoring your own limits, people will keep taking. But if you respect yourself enough to say no when necessary, you establish a healthier balance. At work, if you respect your time and value your contribution, others are more likely to acknowledge your worth. With friends, if you respect your own boundaries, they learn not to cross them. In every area of life, self-respect lays the groundwork for the respect you receive. Self-respect also shows up in the way you carry yourself physically and emotionally. The way you dress, speak, and conduct yourself sends messages about how you see yourself. This isn't about vanity, it's about presentation. If you carry yourself with sloppiness, constant negativity, or lack of care, people may unconsciously mirror that energy back to you. But if you walk tall, take care of your appearance, speak positively, and present yourself with confidence. You signal to the world, I respect myself, and you should too. Energy is contagious, and the way you carry yourself influences how others respond. One of the most powerful parts of self-respect is the ability to walk away from anything that compromises your dignity. This doesn't mean you're arrogant or unkind. It means you value yourself enough not to settle for less than what aligns with your worth. People often think walking away means losing, but in reality, it's one of the greatest ways to show strength. When you refuse to accept what diminishes you, you protect your respect. And when you do that consistently, you build a reputation that says, this is a person who cannot be played with. It's important to understand that respect doesn't come from demanding it with words alone. You can't just tell someone, respect me, and expect it to stick if your actions show the opposite. Respect follows consistency. It follows discipline. It follows the way you treat yourself when no one is watching. If you don't respect yourself enough to take care of your health, your finances, your responsibilities, or your character, others will see that and mirror it back. But when you live in alignment with respect for yourself, you don't have to beg for it. It arrives naturally. Respect. Following self-respect also creates peace in your life. When you know your value and live by it, you stop chasing approval from others. You stop over-explaining yourself to people who don't understand you. You stop lowering your standards just to fit in. That peace makes you more powerful because you no longer depend on others to confirm what you already know about yourself. And that quiet confidence is exactly what makes others respect you even more. At the core, self-respect is about refusing to betray yourself. Every time you honor your values, every time you set a boundary, every time you choose dignity over desperation, you strengthen the foundation of your self-respect. And once that foundation is firm, respect from others will follow. Not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. So never forget this. Respect begins with you. If you want others to value you, show them how by valuing yourself first. Respect is not begged for, it's reflected. And the stronger your self-respect becomes, the more naturally respect will follow you everywhere you go. Would you like me to also create a set of 8 short, powerful affirmations based on this piece, like when I respect myself, I teach others how to treat me, that you can use as on-screen quotes for your videos?